Hello, and thanks for watching another edition of ARFCOM News. This week I'll tell you my opinions about President Trump's SCOTUS pick, we'll hear Dr. Dementia's opinion on the Heller decision, and I'll try to make amends for my inexcusable failure to report on new gun gear. But first, I want you to know about this one simple trick to save money on your electric bill. Utility companies hate him. If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, take a look at our sponsor, TNVC.com, your source for quality night vision gear to make you the bump in the night. It's been a heckin' crazy year, but last week I had the distinct pleasure of reporting to you this year was officially ruthless, and I speculated President Trump's replacement for her would almost certainly be more originalist than anyone Uncle Naughty Hands might choose. This week we don't have to speculate about who that pick might turn out to be. As you're no doubt aware, Trump's choice to replace Ruth Bader is Amy Coney Barrett. On the subject of gun rights, which is the only subject I'm inclined to discuss here, Barrett seems to be a flawless choice. The one case everyone is looking at to try and determine her position on gun rights is a case regarding the right of a convicted felon to have a gun. Barrett wrote in her dissent on Cantor versus U.S. that she believed he did have the right to own a gun since his conviction was for a non-violent offense and there was no reason to believe he was dangerous. She did say she believed it would be constitutional to prohibit dangerous felons from owning guns, but I would argue that anyone too dangerous to own a gun is too dangerous to have access to motor vehicles, pool chemicals, or stabby things. Of course, the usual suspects on the pro-authoritarian side are just losing their minds and ineffectually bleeding all sorts of anti-Catholic rhetoric and promising to delay. Combine sympathizer and known Cylon Shannon Watts ineffectually whined in a USA Today propaganda piece about how Barrett's nomination spells doom for her attempts to violate your rights. Police state advocates like Watts are understandably terrified because there is very little they can really do. Watts lays out a compelling argument that Barrett will dismantle the oppressive laws Watts fought so hard for, and I'm inclined to agree with her. Watts whines that universal background checks and red flag laws would be particularly at risk, but I think she's forgetting the most vulnerable ones. I think magazine bans, scallywag rifle bans, and discretionary permitting will be the first to fall. But I guess if she spent the whole article detailing all the laws that are about to get dunked on, people might start to question why we need more gun control if we already have so much unconstitutional gun control. But she finishes with the weakest of sauces, wishing like super hard that her followers will fight like hell to make sure that the American people, not President Trump and Senator McConnell, get to decide who picks Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement. I have no idea what that even means, but I'm pretty sure the American people did decide who chooses Vader's replacement when they elected the current president and senators, sugar britches. Ultimately, the nomination is almost certain to go through. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but this is gonna happen. Yeah, sure, a few GOP senators could kick it and get replaced by appointees selected by governors who want to torpedo the nomination. Or Martians could death ray all of Congress, but realistically, the nomination will likely proceed. The typical partisan games will be played, and the predictable religious bigotry will be on display, but when the dust settles, Barrett will likely be confirmed. So I want to encourage you to keep the pressure on your Congress critters on both sides of the aisle. Many of them will be facing difficult campaigns and are sensitive to how vulnerable they are, especially in primaries. Many of the folks who would normally line up around the block to make trouble for the current president may be less inclined to draw attention right now. Not that they'll do an about-face and vote to confirm, but they may have less stomach for obtuse delay tactics when the final outcome is more or less already decided. So once again, I am asking you to pause this video and call the U.S. Capitol switchboard right now at 202-224-3121 and ask to be connected with one of these senators. Tell them elections have consequences. Tell them the president has nominated and the Senate will confirm. Playing stupid games right now won't change anything except their own re-election chances. And if you have the time, please go to scotusvote.com and fill out the form at the bottom of the page to send an email to everybody. Because if we don't get Barrett confirmed, stranger danger may get a chance to insert yet another activist justice who will ignore precedent, context, and the plain wording of the United States Constitution to fabricate whatever reasoning they wish to support a state monopoly on violence. And that's not wild speculation on my part either. Biden openly admitted he disagrees with the Heller decision, which confirmed the right to bear arms is an individual right. When asked if he agrees with the Heller decision, Biden replied, "If I were on the court, I wouldn't make the same ruling, okay?" No corn pop, it isn't okay, but at least he's willing to say so out loud. For decades, gun control advocates played coy, claiming they only wanted common sense infringements on our rights. When pressed, individual advocates would often admit that they really wanted an almost total ban on the private ownership of arms, but the politicians would never openly admit to such. By stating in public that he opposes the Heller decision, the befuddled old-timer is also admitting that he does not believe that individuals have any constitutional right to bear arms. While that's a disturbing and rationally unsupportable position, I do appreciate the refreshingly candid dose of honesty. At the beginning of the current troubles, we reported that DHS guidelines recommended that gun makers and sellers should be considered essential, and state and local governments should refrain from shutting them down. Nevertheless, some self-important bureaucrats disregarded this advice and shut down gun stores in their own jurisdictions. To keep that from ever happening in the Buckeye State, the Ohio Senate has passed SB 360, which says no public official shall issue an order that prohibits all federally licensed firearms dealers in the state or in a geographic area of the state from engaging in the commercial sale, giving, furnishing, or transfer of firearms, firearm components, or ammunition for firearms. The next step is to get it passed in the Ohio State House, so go to legislature.ohio.gov to pick a politicritter and call them. Don't everybody just pick that first guy, though, who, by the way, totally doesn't look at all like Ralphie Wiggum. And even if you don't live in Ohio, that doesn't mean you can't tell them what you think. Whichever politician you choose, make sure their staffer understands the DHS has recommended that gun stores are considered essential, so it would be obstinately negligent to vote against the recommendations of the federal government on this issue. As always, be civil, concise, and considerate of the person taking the call. We aren't going to change any minds by being mean. Let's try to get this passed with a veto-proof majority, though, because Ohio Governor Mark DeWine may be resistant to even such obviously common-sense gun safety reforms. Hold up a sec, though. I normally throw some goofy, unrelated image when talking about politicians, but just look at this guy and tell me he isn't the kid who always reminded the teacher she forgot to give out homework on Friday afternoon. DeWine recently whined that he wanted the assembly to do something, please, about the rash of shootings that totally doesn't have anything at all to do with the riots and general lawlessness that have plagued every major city. The plan he's pushing is mostly about background check reform, though, so it's not like he's a hardline confiscator now. I'm just concerned he might feel a need to be seen as taking a stand or revert to his old ways or some such nonsense. In any case, if this bill gets to his desk, he may need some encouragement too, but we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. Remember when we used to encourage you folks to attend 2A events and listed times and locations of rallies? Long ago, in the before times when human beings met with each other, ARFCOM traveled to the Capitol wasteland to cover the 2A rally. Thousands of folks showed up to talk about gun rights, hear others speak, and display their beliefs to their elected representatives. This year, the Capitol Police are refusing to grant permits for more than 50 participants. So the rally will take place, but it will be a virtual event broadcast live on the 24th of October. Stay tuned for details on how to view the stream. Almost 5 million new people purchased guns for the first time so far this year. If every single one of them voted, that would be almost 4% of the total votes cast in 2016. 58% of eligible voters actually voted in 2016, so if the same percentage of new gun owners voted, that's still over 2% of the total. Or it would be if they all voted the same way. 2% may not sound like much, but that's the margin of popular vote that Clinton had over Trump. Most presidential elections in recent history have seen a 2 or 3% spread in the popular vote. Presidential elections are always close, and I believe these new gun owners have the potential to not only decide the next presidential election, but if we are thoughtful and intentional about our interactions with these new shooters, they have the potential to end gun control as a political issue for a generation. That's why the National Shooting Sports Foundation's #GunVote campaign is so important. It's pretty simple. Go to gunvote.org to get registered to vote, learn the candidates' positions on gun rights, and find out how to vote by mail or find your polling place. That's it. The whole point is just to get out the vote for gun rights. So I applaud Sig Sauer for donating $250,000 to the project, and Smith & Wesson and Hornady for each contributing $500,000 as well. That's the kind of corporate citizenship that earns my business. Speaking of corporate donations to worthy causes, Brownells donated $50,000 to the California Rifle and Pistol Association to fight the magazine ban we covered in previous episodes. You'll recall the Ninth Circuit upheld St. Benitez's ruling that California standard capacity magazine ban is unconstitutional. The Ninth Circuit then granted an en banc hearing to review the case once again, so the CRPA will need that money to help feed and water the herd of lawyers that we need to help fight these things. Again. The CRPA Foundation Director of Development, Rick Travis, said, Brownells' generous donation will be used 100% in the fight to see the Duncan v. Becerra case to a successful conclusion in restoring the Second Amendment in California. If you're thinking that's great and all, but why do I care about what goes down in the land of fruits and nuts? Remember that whatever the 9th District finally decides will affect Washington, Oregon, California, Montana, Idaho, Nevada, and Sweet Home, Arizona. And if the case goes to the Supremes, it will affect all of us. So if you want to do your part too, please go to crpa.org/donate right now and flip them some latinum. Full disclosure, both Brownells and AR15.com are owned by Second Adventure Group. There has been so much political and activism news lately that I haven't had much time to bring you gear and industry news, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I hang my head. But let's catch up with some of that right quick. As you likely know, Remington is in bankruptcy, and we reported earlier the Navajo Nation was considering whether they wanted to buy Remington. That deal ended up evaporating, but now we have a pretty good idea of how the company will get split up according to the winning bids for each business unit. There's still paperwork to finalize, but here's how it ought to break down. Franklin Armory gets Bushmaster. Vista Outdoors, which currently owns Spear, Federal, and a host of other brands, will get Remington's ammunition business. Round Hill Group will get Remington Firearms. Sierra will get Barnes. Ruger gets Marlin. Sportsman's Warehouse gets Tapco, and JJE Capital Holdings gets DPMS, H&R, Storm Lake, AAC, and Parker. In all honesty, I see this as an absolute win for the consumer. Trijicon ran the RMR through the dryer and it shrunk. The RMR is almost a standard for slide-mounted mini red dot sights, and as nice as it is, it's still a bit too thick for popular subcompact single-stack pistols like the Smith & Wesson Shield. The RMR CC is intended to address that problem. It's basically the same as the RMR, but slightly smaller. Both the 3 1/4 and the 6.5 MOA versions will have the same $700 MSRP as the regular RMR. Do you want to bring back parachute pants and fanny packs? Do Gen 3 Glocks make you retch? Well, you'll probably dig the new Glock P80. Yes, I know the name probably reminds you of the company that makes 80% frames, but there is no relation. P80 was the nomenclature adopted by the Austrian military for St. Gaston's very first production design before he even made the G17 for civilian sale. Glock partnered with the distributor Lipsies to reproduce the P80 as close as is feasible to the original Austrian military Pistol 80, which gave birth to the OG G17. No finger grooves, no frame rail, and it even comes with the Tupperware box. MSRP will be $670. Daniel Defense introduced the Delta 5 about a year and a half ago, and now they are offering the Pro model, which comes in a chassis stock and has a half MOA precision guarantee. Daniel Defense says the Delta 5 Pro is intended to fill the gap between lower-end models and full custom precision rifles, and the price tag reflects that. The $2,500 MSRP is certainly well short of what you could spend on a precision competition rifle, but it's substantially more than you'd pay for a Ruger RPR. Primary Arms has upgraded their 3X and 5X prism scopes with new reticles and a more rugged mount in the SLX Gen 3 line. These compact, fixed magnification scopes are intended to fill a similar role as the ACOG, but at a fraction of the price. Primary Arms has a reputation for ruggedness and quality. I've tested several of their sights myself and failed to break them. I can't imagine how they managed to make them any tougher, but I'll take it. They also added 2 new reticle designs, including the Aurora, which I reviewed in the Trijicon TA31 right here on the ARFCOM channel. The Aurora is a fantastically simple and capable reticle. If you want to get 80% of the utility of an ACOG at 20% of the cost, I don't think you're going to find a better option than the SLX line. The actual street price, not MSRP, is about $290, and they should be available right now. Well, as available as anything related to a gun can be in this market. Silencer Co. has released a new 7075 billet AR lower. Aside from looking heckin' rad, the new lower features a proprietary ambidextrous bolt catch, flared magazine well, enlarged trigger guard, and QD sling points. MSRP is $250. Brownells has now begun shipping BRN 180 Gen 2 uppers to giddy customers. The BRN 180 is Brownell's take on the iconic AR-18 and AR-180 rifles. It's a piston upper that attaches to a standard AR lower and blends old school cool with modern features like a Midwest free float handguard. The Gen 2 improves on the Gen 1 by using a simplified and strengthened single screw attachment for the handguard, and it adds an adjustable gas block for all barrel lengths. The Gen 1 only had adjustable gas blocks on the short barrel versions. The Gen 2 also adds 300 blackout, and all Gen 2 versions are available on Brownells.com for $900. Well, gentle viewer, that's the end of the line for me. I hope you enjoy watching these things because I sure like making them for you. If you want to help us keep bringing you banger content like this, please support the folks who support us. Not only does TNVC.com carry a wide selection of low-carb, fat-free, non-GMO night vision products, they also have mounts, lights, and all sorts of other gear you need to make you the bump in the night. And if you want to support us more directly, you can get fly shirts like this one in our Teespring store. If you want to score a free shirt, though, post something clever that includes the phrase, "All that hate's gonna burn you up, kid," in the YouTube comments. Whichever comment that includes that phrase in it and has the most updates when we get around to checking will win a free shirt. We're all in this together. I love you.